Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Welcome, Secretary Topper. I hail from the wonderful lands of Westmoreland County, so you probably can pretty much guess where I'm going to go with this conversation. A couple years ago, SEI Greensburg, with very little warning, well, 16 hours warning to me, was sold. Then it in turn went over to DGS to take care of. Your predecessor testified in front of the House State Government Committee of approximate carrying cost of $2 million annually for the property. Recently, there's been activity there in trying to sell off the property, and in discussions on the sale of the property, it came to light of a potential $7.6 million buyout that would be owed to a gentleman who was operating a steam power plant that was providing energy to the prison itself. And if the property was sold, he would then be entitled to the $7.6 million. DGS then had an auction, is that correct? Or bid? They put it up for bid recently, and ironically enough, he ended up being the high bidder. I can't remember the exact amount, $800,000.
$960,000.
$960,000?
Yeah.
Thank you. Which makes a net loss for the Commonwealth of $6.7 million. I know a lot of this was prior to you being there, but can you just help us understand, help this committee understand what's going on, or give us an update on the property and the situation concerning the buyout?
Yes, thank you, Representative Dunbar. And we have received your letter and your request for information. The staff is pulling together all of the documents that you've requested, and I expect we'll have them to you here before the end of the week. I have had an opportunity, as this issue really came to light, I've had an opportunity to really look at it from a somewhat independent perspective, and I can at least share with you these insights. At the time that SEI Greensburg was closed, it had an annual operating costs in the neighborhood of $42 million to run the facility. The Department of Corrections, when the decision was made to close SEI Greensburg, concluded that closing the facility along with closing SEI Crescent would result in an annual savings of $23 million. So the outstanding liability associated with the steam contract represents a buyout of $7 million. So I would submit that even with the $7 million buyout, which is a one-time cost, in comparison with the $23 million annually that has been saved by virtue of this overall transaction, that it was still in the best interests of the Commonwealth and the taxpayers to move forward with the transaction. The sale of the property itself, because of the manner in which these transactions are governed, it is really, must be independent of the outstanding liability that existed, and existed independent of whether the sale was executed or not. The Department of Corrections was on the hook for that expense regardless of whether the property was sold. So in many respects, it's a sunk cost. And from a purely economic standpoint, it still makes sense to proceed with the sale.
And I can understand that, if you're telling me $23 million, and that's how it was sold to us. This is going to be a $23 million benefit to the Commonwealth. You must forgive me for having some doubts, though, about whether there is a $23 million benefit. Well, now $16 million because of this. And I guess the real question is in your discovery phase, you've been going through this, at any point in time, was this payout known all along? Because it was never disclosed. And I mean, we had hearings and it was never disclosed.
Well, as you've mentioned, I can't really speak to what occurred prior to January 20. When the issue came to light over the course of the last couple of weeks, my staff certainly seemed quite well informed about the details involved. when they became aware of that, and when they became aware of that relative to the Department of Corrections staff is a question that I can't answer at the moment.
I can understand that. And as far as the sale, is the sale going through? What's the prognosis there? Let me put it this way. Is there any hope for Hempfield Township I represent, to have something there that's going to produce jobs for our area?
I'm not aware of the plans for the property or the ultimate disposition of the property. However, my understanding is that the sale is that we have a pending agreement of sale and that it is moving forward.
And that pending sale would be to the same individual that has the power plant?
Yes, it would, because they submitted the highest bid.
Yeah, and in that bid, was part of the bid process, was there any consideration of what would be the utilization of the property? Or is it just strictly just a number thing?
Thanks for the question, Representative Dunbar. This gets exactly to the overall process redesign that I would like to see us engage in, because when we sell property via competitive sealed bid, as we are currently required to do, we are unable to take into account anything other than price.
Well, that's a change we need in the procurement code there then. So there's not like a rating factor for the benefit to the Commonwealth?
Not with competitive sealed bids for property sales.
Very good. Well, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.